Hey guys, welcome. I am Jason Eastley, and this is Politicus USA and the Daily. We're two separate publications. I'll see people flying in right now. This is freaking awesome. I'm Jason Eastley, and before we get going today with all of our topics, I really hope you brought your questions. I want to take a few minutes to talk about a recent article that I wrote after the No Kings protest about how the historic numbers are going to mean the undoing of Trump. They're going to mean the end of Trump. And I got some comments there that made me, well, at least one or two, that made me realize that we probably had some stuff to talk about. For example, I used the No Kings protest will be the end of Trump for a very, very specific reason. And that reason is the research I've done over years and years that goes back to the base research goes back to the pre-progressive era in the late 1900s, but basically we can start with the Hooverville protests before the Great Depression to the current time. So we're talking about 100 years, maybe a little more. And the research shows something really fascinating. I'm going to link the article right here in the chat so you guys can go read it. If you're not subscribed to Politicus USA, this is a really good reason to subscribe because these are the kind of things that I write and provide. So we're going to get to our greetings. And I'm going to say hello to everybody in just a minute. The article is there in the chat link. What the article basically says and the research means is my research is based in popular political movements, popular grassroots protest movements, and how they impact the public policy process. Now, examining several of these movements, and there's three different case studies I use in the research, but to be honest, the research needs updated and if anybody really wanted to read it and update it, I would love to segment it and keep doing the research within Politicus USA or the Daily and, do more stuff. And because so much more has happened, it's not, things have changed so quickly, it needs to be updated. So what the research shows is, and this pattern hasn't changed even through modern times, the research demonstrates that popular grassroots movements, and they have to be organic. They can't be something that a billionaire funded. They can't be something that a cable news network started. They have to be genuine grassroots movements started organically by people. And those movements, if they have sustainability and number, tend to impact the public policy process or decision makers or political leaders. It doesn't happen quickly. Like one of the prime cases is the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, as we know, before we got to the Civil Rights Act signed by Lyndon Johnson, I mean, there were more than I would. Some people say 10 years. Objectively, it's almost more like 20 years of protests that took to get that massive landmark legislation through and get it passed and get decision makers to notice and get public opinion to change. But primarily, why I said this means the end of Trump is, numerically speaking, when large popular protests happen, a political leader, decision maker has two options. They can ignore the protest and to keep doing what they're doing that the people are protesting against, or they can listen to the protest and adopt the goals of the protesters within their own agenda, which then hopefully becomes policy and law, and the law changes. We saw that with like the civil rights movement. There are other movements. There have been poor people's movements that, for one reason or another, basically because people are poor and there's not a lot of money behind those movements and they're tough to organize, that struggle somewhat. But we can go through history, and the larger and more sustained the protest is, the more impact it has on the decision maker. Because if the decision maker, let's say in this case President Trump, doesn't ignores the protesters, which the most likely outcome here is Trump isn't a receptive, reactive politician to the country in general. So he is ignoring the protests and doing what he wants to do. So what happens then? If the people protesting feel like they haven't been heard, their protests aren't getting through policy channels or political channels, they'll go to the ballot box. And when they go to the ballot box, they go to the ballot box with ferocity. And usually that means the two options are for someone in Donald Trump's position, he either hears the protest, reacts to dial back what people are protesting, and then the goal is achieved. The movement is the protesters achieve a goal within their movement. In this case, there are so many things people are protesting so many against Trump. It's hard to pick one, but let's just say immigration. We live in some fantasy land for a moment where Donald Trump sees all these protests and pulls back on his immigration agenda. Well, then the protest has impacted the policy and changed policy in the country. Now, what's going to happen is, and what is happening is Trump is doubling down. So the next step is those protesters are going to grow and mobilize, and it becomes an organic sort of mushroom cloud that just blows up across the political spectrum so that by election day, all this energy has to go somewhere. And where it goes is to the ballot box. And then when this happens, when a president or a leader ignores the protest, then their party, in this case, the Republicans, will pay. Basically, what we've been talking about in these chats is if one, if the Republican Party won't check Trump, voters are going to replace the Republicans with something that will, in this case, Democrats. So I wanted to clarify that because I realized that there's been a lot of people for a decade that have been writing for clicks and doing podcasts and everything else telling you that this is going to end Trump and this is going to doom Trump. Remember, Robert Mueller was supposed to be the end of Trump. No, this is actual research that shows that these protests are the key to checking Trump. And he has to, and this isn't just like, oh, it's going to automatically happen. This isn't, the protest has to sustain, it has to continue, it has to get stronger. But the data shows that if Trump keeps on the trajectory he's on, what happens is Republicans get wiped out in the midterm election and he gets checked. And as Mike Johnson already said, Trump's presidency is going to be a 2-year presidency if Democrats take back the House. So that's why I wrote the headline I wrote. I hope y'all understand a little bit better where I'm coming from. I'm not just somebody wrote, oh, these progressive sites are always predicting the end of Trump. Well, that may be true, but how many of them actually have research and data to show the trajectory of where things are going? And that's the difference between Politicus USA and other places. You know, we put the work in. I'm not just going to sit there and try to get you to subscribe or click on an article by saying something that isn't going to happen. A lot of people have done that for a long time. Well, okay. Well, I'm not ready to go to comments yet, but no, he's not jumping. This is from JJ Lockridge. He sees protests. He doesn't seem to care. He jumps to war. Actually, he's not jumping to war. He doesn't want a war. You need to understand this. The story I wrote today, which is really important, he didn't have any intel about going to Iran, about Iran developing a weapon quickly. He just went off vibes and feelings and it looked good. This was not done to start a war. Okay, so all you guys are thinking this is Iraq again and we're going to war? No. He literally wants to do a one and done. He's going to saber rattle and babble about regime change and all this and that. But this is literally, he's too big of a coward to go to war. So, watch what he does, not what he says. And Iran's move today of giving the U.S. a heads up and then firing some missiles at a well-fortified base, that's the typical Iranian playbook when they're looking to de-escalate. So all the signs here indicate that Trump is going to say, oh, the sites have been destroyed into oblivion, even though there's no proof that they've been destroyed oblivion, and they probably weren't. And the Iranians are going to say, oh, we fired back. And then, the problem is the Iranians might like nothing more than to just let this thing die off, take their nuclear program, put it even further underground, literally and metaphorically, and then in 6 months or so, maybe they have a real functioning nuclear weapon. And then on top of the Russians and others saying that they would give the Iranians nuclear weapons. Yeah, this is why you don't jump in, and this is why you never listen to Benjamin Netanyahu. This is why you never jump in and be anybody's lapdog. Okay, now I wanted to say that first and get that out of the way. If you guys want to hear more about the impact of protest on policy and change, and by the way, if this does, for some bizarre reason, if Trump does fumble into some sort of escalated conflict, the same thing I mentioned about the No Kings protest of protesting, the same thing works on anti-war protest. And a great example of that is what happened whenever the public turned on the Iraq War and the protest occurred. You guys remember the 2006 midterm election and the fact that it was an absolute bloodbath for Republicans and there were protests going on all around the country? Yeah. Yeah, the research holds. This is a long-term historical trend. But again, you can't bank on it. You can't just say, "Well, that's gonna happen then. I can sit on my couch and eat Fritos and watch the results roll in next November." No, those that of you that are being active and everywhere you're being active, you have to keep being active. And if you don't want this thing to escalate, then you need to get out there and make it known that you don't want this thing to escalate. Okay, I waited to do the hellos because I really wanted to talk about the research and the protest and the headline. And now we have, about roughly a lot of people here we got to say hello to. So if you guys don't mind, we're going to start breaking it off a little bit. Ron Keffer, I'm going to read a couple comments here from our great, great, great chat participants. By the way, this chat is open to everybody. This is not a subscriber only chat. If you're seeing this and you want to jump in, and if you have questions, please post them. I got some stuff on the big beautiful bill. If you want to talk about the tax cut bill, uh, you know, some really icky stuff about that. Some good news about the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau has been protected. CFPB, probably got that name wrong because I was talking fast. Been protected. The mechanism for cutting SNAP, rejected by the parliamentarian. And the big one, the Republican attempt to give Trump the power to ignore court orders has been thrown out of the bill. There's actually about 10 or so of these provisions, probably more. Some of them are kind of minor. The Democrats won one when they challenged through the bird bath process with the parliamentarian. Um, yeah, you have to remember oaths matter. What happens with the VA cuts? Well, you have to remember the bird bath only decides whether or not something fits within the rules of reconciliation. So things that are budgetary, like VA cuts and Medicaid cuts, those things aren't going to be able to be thrown out of the bill through the bird bath process. It's all the extraneous junk that Republicans put in the bill in the House that is going to be eligible to be tossed. Things like allowing Trump to ignore court orders. Um, yeah, we got a comment here about Trump thinking he's gonna hold off next 3. He doesn't believe he's gonna hold off the next 30 years. He said multiple times now that he's done after this term, Sherry. So he's done. He knows he's old. He knows he's done. Remember, the goal for Trump here isn't to keep power forever. As much as Trump, why does Trump love power? First of all, boost his ego. More importantly, and secondly, Trump loves power because he can use it to make money. Look for Trump to steal everything that isn't nailed down between now and the end of his term, or however long he lives. He's not going to stick around. He has no interest in sticking around. He's gonna once he steals God knows how many billions of dollars from the taxpayers, he's out of here. That's always been the goal. Um, okay, guys, we got to do some greetings because you guys are putting up some big time, well, at least for us, big time participation and viewership numbers here. If you have questions, please put your questions in the chat. We will do our, if I can't answer them, I'll do my best. You can ask me about any old thing. I'll take a shot at it, try to give you the best answer I can. Um, now, also, if you want to just interact, please interact. And remember, this is the kind of stuff that we do. We seriously thought, Sarah and I, after Trump did his remarks on Saturday night, we seriously considered coming on live. But Saturday night, by the time we would have gotten on here, it would have been like 11 o'clock. I actually thought it would probably be best not to come on live and just try to come on when more people might see us, and I hope that has happened today. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I will say it again. I got to scroll up a little bit on the chat. If you guys have any questions, please, please, please leave them with me. Um, let's keep going here. I'm going to start with some hellos. I hope I have some of our regular folks are here. Susan Frymuth. And by the way, if I get names wrong, put your phonetic pronunciation in the comments there in the chat. I'm sorry. I will take care of it. Katrina Heiberg. Hello. Easter Gun. Easter Gun asks, what kind of uprising will need to happen to convince Congress to impeach him? It will never happen, Easter Gun. Republicans will never happen. The kind of uprising needs to happen is Democrats need to somehow get 67 votes in the Senate. Otherwise, it ain't happening. Forget about impeachment. Impeachment's pretty much a waste of time. And if Democrats take back the House, impeachment might be a waste of time anyway, because he's going to be a lamest of lame ducks. Norma Ackright. Hi, Norma. GLA Grandpa. Hi, GLA Grandpa. Patricia Ellsberg. Hi, Patricia. Barbara Kemp. Hello. Karen Fetty. Hello. Pam. John Duarte. We know we've seen John here before. Constitutional patriot. Well, we like constitutions, and patriots are okay with us as long as they're not the kind that storm the Capitol and try to burn things down. Carol Roberts. Dominus Owen Markham. Hi from Spain. Dominus Owen Markham says, hello from southwestern Pennsylvania. Nice to see you. Barry Land, JJ Lochran. We mentioned JJ before. Ida, Jonathan Cannon. Hello, hello. Janet Williams. Kimmy Wynn. Hello, Kimmy Wynn. TJ. Hi, TJ. TEJY. Very interesting. Marianne Egbert. Hello, Marianne Egbert. Anna Keplinger. Fireball. Oh, that sounds hot. Hello, Fireball. Let's see. Okay, let's go on down here. We'll scroll down a little more. What happened? What happened with that $50,000 bond to sue part? Musings on Interesting Time asked. That's gone. That was added by the Senate. The story I wrote specifically, let me see if I can pull it up real quick and put the link in there for you. Chuck Schumer specifically addressed that is gone. That $50,000 bond to try to get a restraining order or an order against Trump. Here we go. I'm going to put this link to this story right here in the comments of the chat. You guys can go read it. I think this is a free one for everybody. Oh, here, we're going to find out in just a sec, aren't we? Oh, Robert's here. Hi, Robert. I tried to give you guys more advance notice today when we're doing these, but it's probably not enough for everybody. I hope it was. Emma's here. Pam, I want him to be done now. Well, yeah, I think, well, I won't say everybody, but I think a lot of Americans would like it if he was done now. But unless God calls him home, to quote, what was it, Oral Roberts? Yeah, he's not going anywhere. So what you have to learn is you got to take power from the Republicans and where Trump derives his power. Trump derives his power from the Republican Party acquiescing their power and giving the congressional power to Trump. So if you break the Republican congressional majority, you take away a whole lot of Trump's power. Okay, we got Ron Keffer. Do you think Trump supporters will ever realize they've been bamboozled and victimized? Oof. That's an interesting question because some, it's already happening. Some do realize that. Others, there's the diehards. You got to separate into groups. There's what we call the soft Trump supporters, the swing voters who voted for Trump. Boy, they regret it. And the hardcore MAGA crowd. The hardcore MAGAs will literally go down with the ship. They're not going anywhere. Oh, Eileen Hanford. Hi from Keller, Texas. Bernie knocked it out of the park yesterday in Fort Worth. Yeah, Bernie's fighting oligarchy rallies have really been something else, and a great public service. If nothing else, because they're helping to mobilize to get people to run for office. They're educating people about the issues, and they're going in the backyards of these Republican incumbents and talking to voters that often aren't talked to. Hi, Geraldine Purcell. Hi from Rhode Island. Hi, Geraldine. I hope it's not as hot there as it is here. The real feel is 103 degrees. Will the current American currency disappear? Dini. No. No. And the reason why I say that is because the interests that are against crypto are the real moneyed interests in the country. Um, this administration, Ann Elizabeth Drew asks a really good question. Ann Elizabeth Drew asks, this administration would need to be convicted first before impeachment. Is that correct? No, you flip that around. If the president was impeached, the president would have to be impeached first, then they go to trial in the Senate. I actually think, and my suspicion is growing as I listen to Democrats in the House talk, that the target for impeachment may not be Donald Trump. The target for impeachment could be members of his administration that enable and have gone along with this. And that, my friends, would be a very interesting development. Sorry about that. Like I said, the real feel is 103 degrees here, but unlike our last chat where if you joined me, I am back in the studio and it is very cool here. Sarah was kind enough to leave the air conditioner on after her last appearance, and it is quite, I would say I almost need to put on a sweater. Actually, it's not quite that cool. Oh, uh, Laura Stevenson says, I was at the Bernie rally in Fort Worth and it was amazing. So much positive energy. Never, ever, ever underestimate the value of that positive energy because that positive energy is what wins elections. Everyone is focused on Trump and his obsessive negativity. But when the left and Democrats win, they win because of positive energy. And the Harris campaign tried to manufacture some of that. And I do think there was a lot of latent positivity there for her, but they also stifled a lot of it by the way they ran their last month of the campaign. They didn't take advantage of the natural enthusiasm, and they really importantly, they didn't let her be her. It became really scripted and really robotic by the end. And let's talk about Article 1, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution. Oh, okay. Denise, will the current Republicans holding our country be prosecuted once this administration is over? Hmm. Um, I would back that up a step. I would ask, will these folks be investigated once this administration's been over? And I think what you're going to see out of the House Democrats are when they take the majority, you're going to see House Democrats launch some really serious investigations into all this corruption. And I think those investigations could lay the groundwork for potential charges in the next Democratic administration, provided Merrick Garland doesn't come back as Attorney General. That was sort of a half joke. We got more people joining. Jocelyn Bedard, Everything in Moderation, are both here. Up. Debbie Sue and Casey are here. Carol Donovan is here. Julie Riley is here. Hello, Julie Riley. Nice to see you. Yeah, I really love talking to you guys. Susan joined, and I really appreciate you guys being here. I'm still trying to figure out the best time really to do these chats and how often we should do them. But this is really every time I come here and you guys show up and you guys want to talk and you guys want to talk to me and you want to listen to me talk to you, it's very encouraging. Matt Matthews and Raymond A. Rudy Jr. are here. Hello, guys. It always makes these people sound like they're together, so I always picture these like up in the evening dinner party. We don't have dinner parties. I wouldn't know a dinner party in my head. Uh, if I always picture people showing up at your door for an evening, maybe to watch a movie or a football game, if you like football, and they're all coming in together, like you're all friends of mine. But a lot of you guys don't even know each other. Like you're just random strangers that Substack puts together in the greeting. So I'm pretending y'all know each other. So hopefully that works for you because it's kind of nice to think of it that way. Kathy Van Slyke. Hello, Kathy Van Slyke. Great to see you here. So let's talk about this Iran bombing thing and what it means. First of all, Is anyone surprised by the absolute utter chaos that has unfolded from this administration in terms of messaging? Trump goes on the air and delivers 4 minutes and 28 seconds of some of the worst messaging I've ever heard in my life. Uh, I thought, I thought he was trying to sell me a Trump steak. Everything was spectacular. Everything was great. It really stuck out to me that he thanked the Israeli military and Benjamin Netanyahu before he thanked the U.S. military. Yeah, way to show you love the troops there, big guy. But the message itself was just a muddled catastrophe. And given Trump's penchant for extreme lies and exaggeration, of course they had to be bombed into oblivion. And the story I just published on Politicus USA before I came here, a little bit before I came here, um, basically was Trump's now very angry that the media is referring to experts who are saying that he very easily may not have destroyed or obliterated the Iran nuclear sites. Uh, so there's the story I just wrote in the chat window right now. So he's very angry that we're pointing out reality here, that these bunker busting bombs have never been used for something like this. And frankly, no one knows if it worked. They won't know if it worked until the inspectors get back in there and look. And even if the facility was destroyed, that's a setback, but it's not a destruction of the program if the Iranians got the enriched uranium out ahead of time, which there is evidence that that very likely happened. So, why did Trump do this? There's like the pithy answers of, well, he's Trump and he's just wanted attention. He wanted to divert attention from the fact that the LA plan to federalize and military ICE deportations has imploded on him. His public polling on immigration, along with every other issue, is in the absolute dumpster. So there are those problems. His presidency's failing. He wanted to change the headlines and change the story. So what better than dropping a few bombs to get people to change the story? The problem is the way Trump over exaggerated everything, he has basically set himself up for failure. Because if it turns out the Iran nuclear sites aren't quote unquote obliterated and the regime doesn't fall, I mean, this is the guy who's still running around claiming ISIS is wiped out. He wiped out ISIS and ISIS is still around. So this isn't surprising. He's probably going to claim that he obliterated all the Iranian sites till the day he dies. But as far as actual success of his presidency, and I also think that Trump thought that the country would rally around him and his terrible numbers would turn around and he would get the war bounce and he would become George W. Bush after 9/11 again and he would save the Republican Party from the midterms. Yeah, none of that's going to happen. Um I'm really curious because I've put on some cable news just to kind of monitor it, and it's so predictable, but also still remains disappointing. Literally for hours, and MSNBC is my yardstick for this because CNN became the big CNN off of the first coverage of the first Gulf War. Fox News, we know where Fox News stands with Trump. MSNBC, we know they're supposed to be critical of Trump, but we also know that they're corporate owned. They're going to be being sold off and spun off on their own. They're different. They're kind of in a different ballpark. So watching MSNBC though, it became clear they're leaving some stuff out, and I don't know where the edict is coming from to leave some stuff out. One of the funniest things was all afternoon they've been playing up this Iranian response by firing some short range and intermediate range missiles at U.S. military base in Qatar. Okay. MSNBC, in the hours I was following along there, didn't mention, except in passing, that the Iranians had told the United States ahead of time they were going to be dropping some missiles on this base. The United States and the Qataris had notice because if you tell people, oh, these missiles we're looking at that we've been talking about for hours now, we knew were coming, and this was pretty much a scheduled, choreographed response. That takes all the drama out of it. And cable news lives for war drama. Man, they love then the only thing they love more is a celebrity murder case, um, than war drama. Uh, but, my sense is, and you guys can respond in the chat, my sense is that y'all are getting a little tired of this story already. And I'm not sure how many of you watch cable news still, but if you do, um, false flag operation. Um, yeah, I'm not so sure it was a false flag operation. I think it was a cheap political ploy Anne Elizabeth threw to try to boost some numbers. Uh, it definitely happened, but it's not. It was just a gimmick again. It was just more Trumpian gimmicks. But it is, as Rachel Maddow likes to point out, Trump's failing presidency. It's like Trump is trying to fast forward through all the steps of failure. Going straight to the using the U.S. military to drop bombs on another country is a fast forwarding of the failed president doctrine. Um, my point is this symbolizes his failure. It would have been a greater historic accomplishment and more popular with the American people. Up, Dale Carrier, mainstream media is dead to me. Dale Carrier. That's why you should subscribe to publications like Politicus USA and The Daily. Cheap plug, I know. We're definitely not mainstream. But he's going right to all the moves. So my question is, we have a long way to go till next year's midterm. He's running out of stuff to pull out of the playbook to try to boost Republicans. And yeah, I know they're still looking at the big beautiful bill, and they're still telling us that the big beautiful bill is going to save them and it's going to bring economic prosperity to everyone, and Republicans are going to get all the credit and it's going to be great and wonderful and fabulous. Um, we all know that's not going to happen. We've lived through this before. The tax cuts keep changing names, but they're the same failed economic policies that haven't worked in the past. Um, Robert, I'm noticing how much time is given to the strikes and how little is given to any other story. Immigration, ICE, the budget bill, etc. That's what Trump wanted. Because I mean, the budget bill is flailing. And if you would ask me if that's going to pass the House as it's in the Senate, I would say right now no. Um, but that'll be something we'll probably get a lot of conversation in on next week. So I'm here to say this is failure. This is what if you were to write a movie script for a high speed presidential failure, Donald Trump is living it. I mean, it hasn't been 6 months yet, people, and he's already jumped into the military strike against a foreign country that's been over exaggerated and phased. I mean, where does he go from here? Being that he's actually terrified of putting troops on the ground, I'm not sure where he goes from here. Um, the ICE deportations aren't working. They've backlashed on quite a bit. Other stories aren't getting the attention they deserve, and that's the media's fault. That's the media's fault. They're always going to look for cheap and easy and something to fill hours with on cable news. And this around stuff is cheap and easy. And they can call up all their military contributors and they can have the same conversations over and over again till you're ready to fall over. Um, and that takes up. I mean, I'm just wondering if this is really that level of importance of breaking news that we have to take every second. Um, the sale of public lands and mining and drilling and leases on these lands. Uh, that's a really good question because That whole area, the sale of public lands is a separate bill, actually not in the budget bill. Um, there's a lot of pushback on that, a lot of Republican pushback on that, especially from small red states that have a whole lot of public land that don't want it sold and turned into condos or whatever. Need to talk about the murder bill. Well, we've been talking about the murder bill for weeks on end. KK. Um, yeah, I don't think I'll tell you again, and as each of our chats come and go. Yeah, and they're still kidnapping. ICE will still be kidnapping, and they're gonna still be kidnapping until they're stopped. And honestly, I don't think they stop until Democrats win back part of Congress. Um, you're going to be amazed if Democrats win back the House at just how quickly, number one, members of the Trump administration leave. They're going to be flying for the exits if Democrats win back the House. And number two, you're going to be amazed at the absolute the absolute lack of desire of many of these people to have to sit before Congress on the television cameras and explain what they're doing. So, this is not a fun, simple, easy situation. Trump's got himself into this thing with the Iranians. He's lucky that the Iranians don't seem to want to go to have a serious war. Um, we now know Trump had no intelligence. He didn't even have Israeli intelligence. What did Trump use to determine he wanted to join the bombing of Israel? He was happy that the bombings looked good on Fox News that Israel was doing, so he wanted in. And vibes. The president with the worst instinct. Oh, KK says they're going to kidnap Iranians next. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump uses this to revoke the legal immigration status of Iranians in this country, just based on how he's revoked legal statuses of immigrants that are already here so far. That would be my guess, and that's just a horrible thing. So, the president with the worst political instincts in the history of the presidency, potentially, that goes way back too far before any of us. So I don't like saying that. At least in the modern era, he's definitely has phenomenally bad instincts. Decided to deploy the military on a whim. This is a failed president who doesn't have a clue. And if Democrats wanted to message effectively on this, that's the first thing they would say. This guy doesn't have a clue. The White House was recently taking a victory lap because the tariffs haven't raised inflation yet and prices. But then economists are saying just wait because we're going through our current inventory right now. Once our inventory expires and businesses have to start selling the stuff they've imported under tariffs, the price increases will come. So I'm saying to you right now that you should definitely be vocal that you do not want this conflict to escalate. But also, all the signs say this thing isn't going to escalate. The Israelis are the gasoline on the fire here. They start the fire, then they dump the gasoline on it. And by the Israelis, I don't mean the Israeli people. I mean Netanyahu and his government. And if you want to hold somebody responsible for what happened in Gaza, for what's happening in Gaza, for what Israel is doing in Iran, it's Netanyahu. Um, so he is a gigantic part of the problem. There are, of course, other deeper problems throughout the history of that region that go back a very, very long time. But Benjamin Netanyahu is the accelerant that's bringing everything to the surface, and people are dying. So, what do you do? Well, first of all, if this is the way cable news is going to treat everything, uh, turn off cable news. Um, because there doesn't seem to be a rational perspective right now. The rational perspective is Trump's a failed president who's grasping. And of all the dangerous stuff a lot of people warned that they thought he could do, dropping bombs on Iran and then running away and then having his entire administration say, we're not going to do anything else. And then having Trump post on Truth Social after he realized that made him look weak. Well, maybe we are going to. What's wrong with regime change? Well, you know, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that at all. This is a failing presidency without a clue. And if people want to argue with you about this presidency, just run through the list of failures. If somebody in your family is like, well, Trump's been great, ask them, is the Ukraine war still going on? Has Trump solved the Middle East? Are your grocery prices lower? Are gas prices lower? This man made 6 major promises and he has not fulfilled a single one. Now the cult will nod their heads and say everything's wonderful and great. Everyone else, which is about 65 to 70% of the country, sees what's going on here. And this is a situation that is not going to get better overnight. Democrats can't make it better. One of the things, because I did a roundup of all the Democratic response after Trump's strike, and there were some people commenting on the Daily asking, well, these are just more Democratic words. And my question back is, what do you really expect Democrats to do right now? Do you think they should walk out of Congress? Should they hold a press conference? If they hold a press conference, aren't those just more words? That's the problem. If I believe Democrats should be held accountable, but I believe first Democrats must be given power to see if they deliver what they have said they would deliver, and then if they fail to deliver, they need to be held accountable by you, by the media, by everyone. But there's nobody else that can fix this right now. There's nobody. Oh, we got some hellos real quick. And it's up to you guys. It's up to the people. Because as we saw, and if you don't think 5 million people protesting Donald Trump had anything to do with his decision to drop bombs on Iran, then you haven't been paying attention to Donald Trump over this last 10 years. Because the optics are bad, and he's trying to change them. Emma and Michael Foray, hello. Donald W. Hawken and Donna Bennett, hello, hello. Daniel Payton and Francis A. DeMuro, hello. Lillian Laskin has joined us. Terry Taylor, hi, Terry. Susan Meechan, I hope I said that right. Lillian Fujimoto, I hope I said that right, Lillian. Lenora Rossi, Ruth Bowman, oh wow, Frank Mosa. You guys are just coming on in. Yeah, and as you can tell by the public reaction, and this is where the big disconnect comes in on the Iran situation. The public reaction versus the media's coverage, they're in different universes. The public reaction is, this is crap. We don't want this. Of course, we don't want to run a nuclear bomb, but we don't want some president going off half-cocked just dropping bombs on foreign countries. We don't want another war in the Middle East. The media's coverage is woefully lacking on bringing up potentially what is missing in Trump's story. And if you look at it, what is missing are facts, details, a logical rationale, a consistent timeline. And the big question is, what happens tomorrow? Okay, Iran fired these missiles. Is the US going to just shrug it off and we're going to go about our business? Or is there more? Yeah. Jeffrey Whiting, the Democrats need to loudly keep pointing out all of the awful decisions made by this administration true and continue to threaten to impeach. Yeah, they can threaten to impeach, but honestly, impeachment, nah. Unless you do it fast, you don't want to spend months. If Democrats get back the House majority, I would rather they investigate this administration and all the corruption than waste months on an impeachment, especially heading into a presidential election year. Um, I think that if Democrats want to show the country that the people need a government that will function for them, I'm not sure impeachment is the way to deliver that message, especially because there have been so many impeachments now. There has been some desensitization to the idea of it. People are more likely to not pay attention. So, not the people in this chat, not the people that read articles, not me, but there are people that won't pay attention. Oh, great, another Trump impeachment. That's number three. It's, so I get that. I mean, I think there are a lot of ways to investigate Trump that don't end with impeachment. So that would be my preference at the moment. And also, what we all need to do right now, what y'all need to do right now, the Senate is going to be pushing, the Senate and the House are going to be pushing a War Powers Act resolution to strip Trump's power from doing this thing ever again. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey talk about a sitcom of an odd couple are leading the charge in the House. And I have not had a chance to write about this, but Tim Kaine has just been absolutely incredible on the issue of limiting Trump's war powers in the Senate. And he's been hammering away at it. And every time he gets a chance, he's been on this issue for a very long time and way before this current crisis, years and years. And these strikes were unconstitutional. They were unauthorized. They shouldn't have happened. And Congress at some point is going to have to do something. Treason. Okay, Pam. Pam asked, what about treason? Well, first of all, by the definition of treason, Trump would have to be found to be providing aid and assistance to an enemy of America. Okay. Trump controls the entire federal government. Who's going to prosecute Trump for treason federally? Nobody. So, no, Trump won't be prosecuted for treason. And because of the Supreme Court's retroactive immunity ruling, once he leaves office, anything he did while in office that's treasonous probably isn't prosecutable. So, yeah, give up. You might as well give up getting Donald Trump and wait for him to commit a crime while out of office, which, let's face it, it's Donald Trump. That's probably going to happen. So just bide your time. Um, yeah, there's no enforcement mechanism in the government right now that can prosecute anybody. The judicial branch, if the judicial branch wanted to hold Trump administration officials in contempt and put sanctions on them and even throw them in jail for defying court orders, they could do that, according to Jamie Raskin. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but some of these judges and some of these rulings, it's getting awful close. So, judges are getting a little tired of being defied and ignored. GM Lupo and Beth Beberg? Oh, hello, Beth Beberg. Hope I said that right. Carolyn Cruz is here. Hi, Carolyn. So, the guardrail here that works, these protests are the guardrail that works. The courts have done admirably, but we're seeing the limitations of the courts. The guardrail that works is all of these people making their voices heard. And by the way, I've heard from a lot of you guys. I understand not everybody can physically get to a protest for one reason or another. I don't think you have to physically go to a protest. Your voice is your protest. If you can write an email, if you can make a phone call, if you can make sure that all of your family, especially the younger folks who don't normally participate in midterm elections or special elections before the midterm, those people, round them up and get them to the polls. That's how you can help. We're not powerless here. Trump wants you to think you're powerless. Trump wants you to think he has all this power. He does not. When 5 million people took to the streets, 4 to 6 million, we're not sure. Organizers say 5. The data scientists say 4 to 6. So it could be more than 5. It's tough to get a good hit count. When all those people took to the streets and all those for the millions that protested, there were millions more that supported them. And we need to just keep the pressure on the gas pedal. Don't let up. The next protest needs to be even bigger because you are the guardrail. You decide who gets to be in power next year. You decide who gets to go back in the White House. I mean, we saw what happened with Elon. As soon as Elon dumped all those millions of dollars in Wisconsin and lost, Mr. Musk said, I'm going to pull back my political giving, and the cheat code that they thought they had for billionaires dumping money in elections and winning, it turns out isn't new, original, or effective all the time. We have a question here from KC. Where's the big money for the Dems? I don't see much advertising for the midterms. It's too early, KC. They're not going to run midterm advertising until after the primaries next spring. And even then, you're just going to see some, and you're really not going to see it kick into gear till mid to late summer. Because it seems like the schedule of the calendar is getting moved up more and more. It used to be you wouldn't see the barrage of midterm ads till after Labor Day. It's been inching closer into like July and August. So I think that you're probably going to see that a little bit closer. Up, Robert Sowers. This is the same as Indiana Jones, makes it up as they go along. Only his script is effed up, and their case was the Twilight Zone. Yeah, yeah. He's making it up as he goes along, and it's not working. So, by the way, for midterm political donations, people are not donating to the DNC right now. The DNC donations are way down. And there's still I sense a lot of anger left over from last year's election and how it went down. And I will tell you right now, and the DNC already, well, the people that used to run the DNC didn't really care for me. Uh so I might as well just say it. There are better places to put your money than the DNC if you're going to donate. The place where your donation will have the biggest impact is with a local candidate. And donate, even Act Blue will take a percentage of a donation when you donate online. So if you can donate to a candidate directly, then every single dollar of that money goes to the candidate you're supporting. So if you don't like the way your local government's working, you can make a big difference with a little bit of money in the local government supporting the right candidates. Um, Even and this is a big problem, like red areas still need Democrats to run for office. And we're having trouble finding a lot of qualified people to run against these Republicans, or just people to run, because there's no funding, there's no money, and there's not a whole lot. If you live in a rural red area of this country and you're a Democrat and you want to run for something, you know, number one, you're probably going to lose. Number two, no one's going to give you any money. So that doesn't mean that the Democratic Party shouldn't try, which honestly, Democrats are trying to talk a good game about funding red areas and local parties, they need to back it up. Bill Clinton was the person who broke the Democratic Party fundraising structure to local parties in the 90s. He was the one who federalized and put up more for his causes than himself. And frankly, it hurt rural Democratic parties. And when the defection of rural Democrats came in the early 2000s, there was no counter. And a lot of these places could be really good parties. And I think there's a lot of places where moderate Democrats could be very, very, very effective. But we can't find candidates that want to run knowing that they're starting out maybe down by 20 points and they're not going to have any money. Uh, you know, it's a tough situation, but it's only one that if the DNC wanted to really inspire confidence in voters, they would aggressively start working towards rebuilding these local parties. Because once people see results on the ground at home, they'll be more likely to support the work they're doing. Okay, let's see who else we got here. We got more people. Nancy Pomonas has joined. Gabe Hoffman. Hey, we've seen Gabe here before. Hi, Gabe. John McLaurin is joined. And Pam J. Hello, Pam J. Tina L. Bennett. Hey, you get a good candidate. Okay, that seems like an incomplete thought. Tina, I think you might be missing a little something there. We'll come back to you. SP and Terrence Kelly are here. Hi, SP and Terrence Kelly. Yeah, so, you know, I wouldn't, I was kind of holding my powder on where I thought this Iran thing was going until Trump's morning debacle of chaos, where he sent out his administration, including the hapless J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and others on the Sunday shows to say, we're not escalating. We're not Pete Hegseth at his press conference. We're not escalating. We're not into regime change. And then Trump puts on Truth Social, well, why not regime change? Yeah, it's the same. It's the same show as the first time, but it's more incompetent, more inept, and even worse to have to try to figure out where they're going to go next. But once I saw them do that, I pretty much knew Trump wasn't going to escalate this, and so the Iranians probably knew that as well, and so they just gave the signal to the U.S. they're going to fire a few missiles, say they retaliated, call it a day. And my guess is that Trump calls it a day and declares victory or two, and that this goes away. Uh yeah, but this is failure. I mean, if anything, remember how Trump during COVID actually made things worse with his policies and intervention and lack of action in appropriate areas? This is the same thing that's happening with the Iranians, except it could result in a nuclear weapon. I don't see how this works out well. I don't see how bombs. This is the same thing as the Iraq War in one respect. In Iraq, there were warnings over and over again because we were at war with terror. Remember that? The war on terror? Warnings over and over again that the U.S. was always going to lose the war on terror because terrorism is fundamentally an idea. What we call terrorism. It's an idea. It's a thought. There's an ideology. Um, you can't kill an ideology. You can't kill a thought. Unless every Iranian scientist gets killed and we find a way to block all thoughts of nuclear weapons in Iran, you're not going to be able to just drop bombs and wipe out a nuclear program. That you just can't. It makes Republicans feel all good and they puff out their chests, but you can't. It's not going to be effective, and history shows it's more likely to backfire. That is what we're looking at, but only a failed president who doesn't understand diplomacy, negotiation, or anything beyond zero-sum thinking would pursue such a short-sighted and stupid move. And it was short-sighted and stupid, and I don't think there's any other way to say it. So, let's see, we're at 5:10, that means we've been here for an hour. I think, hey, if you get a good gubernatorial candidate, I'll send them money. Well, that's a good thing. So, if we get a good gubernatorial candidate in Pennsylvania, our governor's Josh Shapiro, he's gonna be around a bit longer, probably to run for president. Um, yeah, I think that honestly, the best way for you guys to do it and the most effective way for you to be involved is to donate directly to candidates. That means these PACs, that means these people producing all these ads that somehow always end up asking for money from you. Uh, you know, remember, every time you got to give to somebody else that's not the candidate, they're taking a cut. So if you give $20 to a PAC that says they're going to give part of the money to a candidate you support, that part of the money may be $3. They may pocket 17 and donate 3. So, just we can talk about the campaign finance system some other time, but the best way to do it is to direct donate and find candidates you believe in and support them. You know, don't go with the pack. Don't go with what you that you're being told. Because I think as we head into a presidential election, a Democratic primary that's going to be absolutely bonkers, there might be 35 Democrats running for president at one point for 2028. And there's going to be a big impulse to thin the field as quickly as possible. Pick a nominee and go right for taking back the White House. But I think that the person the Democrats select needs to be the right person. And it can't just be whoever they think can win or whatever they think they can do. It's got to be a person that represents where the country is and where the Democratic Party is at that time. Where each is going to be, I don't know. But I know one thing for certain. It isn't going to be looking at J.D. Vance and going, yeah, there's our guy. So I hope if you were anxious about the Iran situation, I hope you're not feeling as anxious or maybe you have a little more understanding. Like I said, if you guys do want to talk more about protest movements and how it impacts politics, or if you want to see me do more writing on those things, I would really love that. But, you guys are basically running some of the ship here. So whatever you tell me you like and don't like is kind of somewhat where we're going to go. Or things you care about or things you want to know more about. Like, does anybody have any questions before I think about ending this chat for this week? Questions are open. If you have questions, this is your time. GWB, hello. That's not George W. Bush, is it? Oh, might be. Sharon Howerton. Hello, Sharon. You look familiar. I think you may have been here before. Commenter 2026 and Vicky Schilling are here. Chris and 2 others have joined. Terry Lingo and Laura Clary are here. Oh, that's great. Robert, there's going to be elections. The elections, he can't stop the elections. This one seems to come up almost every chat we do. Okay, here's what you got to know about elections, especially 2026. They're state and locally run. The federal government has no role in elections. Trump can't declare martial law and stop elections. Okay, he can't do anything to stop elections. These elections in 2026 are not federal. They're people being elected to statewide federal offices in some cases, or district federal offices in the House. In the case of the House, these are not federal elections. Actually, we have no federal elections in this country. Presidential elections are 50 separate state elections run by and overseen by the states. So understanding how the system is set up will go a long way toward avoiding falling into the trap of, oh my God, are we going to have elections or what's going to happen? Yeah, we're going to have elections. Um, Now, how those elections look and how much billionaires may try to meddle or, you know, what's going to happen, that's something we don't know yet. But there's going to be elections. Oh, and by the way, folks, I didn't shave today because the real feels like 103 degrees. And if I would have shaved and stepped outside, my face would have lit up like, somebody set it on fire. So I thought you guys would not want to see that. So I look a little scruffy today by design. Um, well, I don't know. Oh, Tina Bennett. Oh, I'm interested in Canada. Tina asks, I didn't realize you were only interested in PA. What candidates are you talking about? I think there's a miscommunication here. I'm interested in candidates at all levels and all places. There's not just the Pennsylvania thing. I'm in Pennsylvania, so I use Pennsylvania as an example. Um, I think that the good candidates, we don't know who the really good candidates are next year. We don't know who the presidential candidates are. I'm just saying, as a general matter of principle, you should find candidates that reflect the things you believe in and support them. And that goes for Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everybody. There's no magic formula. This just doesn't apply to one or the other. As far as Iran, boy, we all have a lot of Iraq war trauma, don't we? And the best way to differentiate between the two things, because there are some similarities, but just remember, the American people aren't behind the president this time. That was the biggest difference between Iraq and now. Everyone who remembers the post 9/11 environment where it was almost heresy. It was you were a heretic if you dared to criticize the administration in the lead up to the Iraq war. Um, you see a lot of criticism now, and that's the point that I think is really important to make. And you see a lot of people who have learned the lesson from 20 years ago, and they're not. Oh, music the time we were lied to. And as Bernie Sanders said on Sunday, I think we're being lied to again by our own government on Iran and their nuclear capability and how far they were from a bomb. Um, the difference is George W. Bush thought he was doing the right thing. Uh, Donald Trump, I don't think, has any kind of moral core whatsoever. So there is no equation of right or wrong ever. It's just what will politically benefit him in that moment. And that is what that's why he's susceptible to public pressure, number one. That's why these protests work. Because you have a guy who wants so hard to make you to project that he's a strong man, but he's so weak and malleable. Um, so it's really easy to protest him and get a reaction. He's either going to scurry away from his policy, deny whatever people are protesting, or try to change the subject. The Democratic government. Okay, I'm not sure I'm following there. Um, I think that Trump, what Trump tries to project and what he really is are two very different things. And as long as you don't fall for the projection, as long as you look at what is really happening and just how ineffective it is, and just how ineffective he is. And I think it would be crushing for him on some level if he could ever admit it, that his bunker busting, knocking Iran's nuclear program into oblivion failed. That's why he'll never admit it. But I also think that it would be par for the course. It would be your typical Donald Trump. Okay, gang, we've now gone an hour and 10 minutes. This might be a new record. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate it. Please, if you're not a subscriber, we do this stuff. I'm here. I'm here to interact with you. We're here to have these conversations. Uh, if you can subscribe, please. Sarah is the visionary behind the daily. I contribute there. Sarah Jones. Jason Easley, the person typing up some news at Politicus USA. So please, if you can subscribe to both, great, because they're two different styles of writing. Um, Tina, that's a very good point. The Democratic Virginia governor who just won the primary, Abigail Spenberger. No, yeah, she needs money. Yes, yes. We do have gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia this year, and Democrats need to send a message by winning winning both. It's very important. So, if you guys can subscribe, I would so appreciate it. It helps keep this thing going. It helps make sure that I can be here for you. It helps make it so that when news happens, we're there. We don't have any corporations. We're not, oh, believe me, I mean, I'm not a millionaire. Not a rich person at all. Um, I'm a regular person, and your support allows a real independent coverage to thrive, to grow, to get louder. So if you can do it, please consider supporting us. Uh, Thank you so much for being on this chat today. I hope you learned something. I hope we had a great conversation. You got as much out of this as I did, and we will be talking again soon. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.